Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynne. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynne.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again this week. What are we talking about?
So there's many people out there, many women out there that are beginning in their journey after their kids are grown, and they're looking for ways to express themselves, maybe a new business, maybe a new project, just looking to expand and grow.
Yeah.
And you're considering partnerships and collaborations.
Or if you haven't, maybe you should.
Exactly. So today we're just talking about what makes a successful partnership. You can apply this to your relationship at home, your romantic relationship with your partner.
Yeah, I love it.
You can apply this as just being a good friend as well. So there's a little something for everybody in this conversation, not just those people looking to actively enter into like a business type partnership, but we're going to share our story. And we get asked a lot, like, you guys are best friends, you know, how do you work together? I know I get asked that a lot with my husband, right? I work with my husband, and we're
you
best
should have a lot
friends
to
as
say
well.
about this because you're working with me.
Well, that's
and
why I
Mark.
brought up the topic.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something beneficial. I think
Because you go to bed at night pulling your hair out.
because I really need to express myself.
Yeah.
No, I think there's something really beautiful about bringing two people or multiple, like maybe four people together to share their strengths.
Yeah.
In a table of sorts of,
Sure.
you know, a proverbial bringing your gifts to the table and then pushing them all in, and then, you know, together 1 + 1 = 11.
Yep.
Right.
That's
And
great.
so, but a lot of people are wondering, like, ooh, how would it's a risk to take when especially if it's a friend or
Yeah.
partner. It's really a risk to go that route. And so how do you know when you should make that risk, take that risk? What are some signs, and what makes a great partnership?
Yep. And I think, well, listen, some people might be listening that didn't even consider that as an option. And if you haven't, like, maybe you do need to consider it because, you know, if you're wanting to go out on a new venture or start something new, it might seem a lot more reachable,
daunting.
attainable
Mhm.
if you partner with somebody else, right? So, and also, like, it's not for the faint of heart. I'm not sitting here, I don't think either of us are sitting here to tell you it's the easiest thing we ever did. So, like, if you're going to collaborate specifically with a friend or a family member or someone you care about, you better make sure it's a strong relationship, and you better have some like groundwork in place, because you don't want to get to a place where it ruins the friendship.
Correct. And
that is a risk.
And not every friendship, partnership is destined for success either. Like, the friend side can be successful, but in terms of not every relationship can be put through that lens and have it stay strong.
I agree.
Right?
For sure.
Okay, so let's get practical. So the very first thing to do would be to take the What's Your Purpose quiz. And the reason you would start there is because that is going to give you a result, a broad result, albeit, but it's going to tell you how you lead. Like, what's your dominant source of what you're dominantly bringing to the table when you show up together to form a partnership.
Yes. So you're talking about the quiz that you put together. It's on our website. You can find it there. There's a button on the top right homepage that says take the What's Next quiz or What's Your Purpose quiz. You can also find it in the bios of our social media feeds.
lifeafterkids.com, right up in the upper right.
Yep.
And you can go back and listen to a previous podcast where we actually broke down all the results of that quiz, what it means. And that way you can use your results to get to know yourself a little bit better, but you can also use that explanation to get to know your partner a little better. And
the reason why that's so huge, and sorry, I'm probably taking words out of your mouth, but this is the crux of it, is because, and funny enough, I just had a super aha moment for us when we did that podcast episode, when we talked about the quiz, because I think we solidified and realized more what your strengths are and what my strengths are and where we operate. When you know that, it frees you up to do the things that you are really good at and that you like, and B, you don't hold your partner that you're working with to other things that they're, you know, it really makes things so much easier when you know where your strengths are. You can focus on those areas, and then you know also where you need to fill in the gaps, where, like, and you can start to think about, well, who, if I am going to collaborate, who can meet these specific areas, right, that I know that I'm not going to be good at.
So good. Yeah, so we have a history of like knowing some of this information about each other, but it wasn't by accident. It was because of some of the work that I started to do,
Right.
and then I shared it with you around strengths. And, you know, I remember at the time, and I've told this story, and so have you, of just like, I would buy these books and give them to my friends because I wanted to know how they were wired. And the reason why that helped me is because I didn't have to guess. I could approach them in the way that I had this new understanding of what it was that I was learning.
Yeah.
Right. And so it took the guesswork out of it for me, which was really helpful because I'm not wired as a relator. So, you know, I had to kind of work to learn that information so that I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So if that's you, consider that, and, you know, message me and I can help guide you on that. But, so where I was going with that is, you know, we learned these things about each other early on, long before we went into business.
Right.
Right. But I mean, we've been friends for 20 years.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. And I think the natural progression of a friendship is to get stronger as you go, but not always.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think coming up on 25 years. I know.
We should celebrate an anniversary. I feel like that's a
friend anniversary
trip.
That's yeah. So we're all any reason to take a trip.
Amen.
Sorry, I
No,
distracted
but
you.
the point is that, you know, sometimes your friendships wane over that time. And I feel like one of the big reasons why ours has strengthened and sort of grown in momentum is because of that understanding. Because the truth is through that friendship, I mean, the law of odds is with you, is against you for you will experience some conflict in that period of time. The longer that you've been friends with somebody, the higher the likelihood that you're going to go through some shit, some stuff.
Yes. And not only that you're going to experience conflicts, but for us, you're living in the Midwest and I'm in New England, right? So we don't see each other every day, and you're going through major life changes where you're changing a bit as a person. You still have your core wiring, but if you don't really get each other and you can't connect on that deeper level, it's very easy for your path to diverge instead of you continue to growing together and growing in. And here's the thing too, when you understand your person, whoever, like your friend, your partner, your kid, whatever it is, business partner, your romantic partner, when you understand them better, then you can also come alongside them and help them to become the person that they want to become, right? Help them on their growth path, which is huge. Like Beautiful. That's been huge for me.
Right. And so, you know, when I talk about conflict too, because that is the place where some people just part ways.
Yeah.
They go through conflict. But knowing the way that a person approaches life, how they form relationships, how they get things done, how they see the world, knowing those things in advance of that conflict helps you to understand why they have that perspective.
Yes, it enables you to give them a lot more grace.
Yes, because instead of us seeing them, oh, well, they didn't handle it this way, and this is how I would have handled it. This is how I want to handle it.
Yes.
We can look at it through a lens of, oh, okay, but I know this about her. Now, this happened, you can still do things wrong. This doesn't excuse anybody from doing something wrong, but it does help you in just ordinary, let's call it ordinary conflict, just places we disagree, right? Not where anything was done wrong. It does help you to see each other's point of view, so that you can meld that and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had my husband say that when I've talked him through different things. And I am definitely guilty of, like he said, you can't, your problem is that you hold this expectation for people to do things the way you do or see the world the way you do, and they don't. Like nobody's going to do, no, and that's not fair. That's not fair of you to hold that bar.
Yes.
Because you're different, like we're all different. So to your point, like when you even understanding that, but then if you can take a step further and understand how it is that they're different, not just that they're different, but how, it's even more helpful, right?
Oh my gosh, huge.
So good.
Okay, so entering into a partnership, maybe you have this idea, maybe you want to do, there's a business venture that you want to embark on, maybe it's something creative, whatever it is, you have a person in mind and their current friend or whoever, and you think, wow, could we come together? Maybe it's somebody you've already talked about who shares a similar interest and you guys are getting excited and thinking about collaborating, right? what should you look for in that relationship? What are some, I guess, green flags, and then what are some red flags on the opposite side for that? So I have a couple of points here. All right. So to know, because first of all, and would you say that you need to enter into it, you have to decide whether you prioritize the friendship over the work relationship or the work relationship over the friendship.
Yeah.
There might be some friendships or acquaintances where the work piece is actually stronger for you. Maybe it's just somebody you don't know very well, and consider those people as well, because those make natural partners, right?
Well, actually, I would say that would be a far easier collaboration.
Far easier.
It's easier to collaborate and work with somebody who you are not very emotionally attached to.
It is.
Right.
It can be done both ways,
It can.
in my experience, but you're right. That's the easier road.
Mm-hmm.
So in evaluating this person, first of all, look at the existing relationship that's there. If you have to work at what is there, it may be a red flag. So a good partnership, you don't have to work at it. It just works.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's easy or perfect. Nothing is. But it is there is a sort of, I guess, ease about it, in that you guys tend to sort of gel, right?
Well, yes, and it's like that. I remember saying, I can think of a specific friend I used to say this to. Like, it's kind of like, I'll use this metaphor, like for the person who thinks that they're in a relationship with someone and it's going to get better once you get married. And I have said to friends, like, this is as good as it's ever going to get.
Yeah.
If you're on rocky road now and you have a lot of conflict now and you can't seem to meet each other halfway, getting married is only going to highlight all those things and make them exponentially worse. And it's the same thing with a business.
Absolutely.
Or a collaboration. Like and I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
If you already, like, if it's a good friend, but you can butt heads and it's a little bit of a struggle and
it's a no-go.
Probably not a smart,
No.
unless you're really willing to work on the relationship. But I would say that's probably not a road you want to venture down.
Too much to take on all in once. So if you have to
Yeah.
work on the relationship
Do that
and you're
first.
building a project business,
Yeah.
collaboration, it's too much. It's
Agreed.
not got good odds
Agreed.
for it. So the second piece on that is there needs to be no competition between you. I'll repeat that again. There should be no competition between you. So you can make an argument that there's healthy competition, but in a good relationship, you're not competing with each other because you're on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So I think that when somebody's really in your inner circle, and a business partner needs to be in your inner circle, because you guys need to prioritize the business at times, right? You can't compete. You have to be on the same team.
Yeah, and that's which seems like it should be obvious, but it's just that human nature to let our own pride and ego get in the way.
Especially, I think sometimes women just naturally compete with each other.
So you really do have to keep that in check. And I think the good reminder there is that you're both working towards the same goal and you're on the same team.
Yeah. So
a win for you is a win for me.
Correct. Right. And then last but not least, this is an important one, because there's some real concrete action we can put with it. You both need to fall in love with the same vision for the future. Okay.
Yeah.
So you prioritize the result, the end game. That is what matters, because that's what's going to get you through conflict. When conflict comes up, you can not compete with each other. You're just going to work it through to try to get to the end result, which is what you've fallen in love with. And it's important. It's the same thing. So you need to, that's where the concrete action comes in. You need to, as step one, sit down and envision what the end is, right? Start with the end in mind and make sure you both are on the same page, because if you don't start there, you could get a few steps into the process of whatever you're building and realize, your partner is heading this way and you're heading that way.
That's not
have to know the direction where you're headed.
Would you say that's where some of our conflict arose? I think because when you and I started this venture together, we kind of did what Brooke always does, which is let's just go and do it. And there wasn't a ton of we had a very loose vision for what we wanted, but then once we got started, it was like, well, let's try this, or let's do this, and let's go. And sometimes we were trying to head in different paths, and that created some, it took us some time.
And to our, I mean, to our, what I would say about us is we actually did, like you said, we did this exercise. So the point of this is you have to revisit this often. This is like a quarterly thing. It's not just a one-time thing.
It's important to check in.
And that's so important with your romantic. So all three of these things apply to your romantic relationship. I really believe that that makes a strong marriage as well.
That's great.
And so now that your kids are getting older, right, and possibly moving out, you both need to come together and fall in love with what is the vision for our next 10, 15, 20, 50 years, like plan, you know, plan for that. And who knows how much time we'll get, but we're together, we're on the same page.
It's so important.
Yeah.
That's really good. Really good advice. Do you have anything to say about like ground rules? Because I think that's important.
Share some.
So
I don't have any written ones.
No, we didn't write anything out, but I think like something that you said to me when we were, you know, going through some things. One thing was like, you can't take everything personally. And then to caveat that is you have to compartmentalize. Like we can be friends, but when we get on a business call, like it's about the business. It's not, if I say something to you, it's not like to hurt you as a friend. We're talking business.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. And I think you've learned that through the years, first just being with
that just takes practice.
But you really do have to, like, anything that's going on a friendship level, sometimes you have to set aside so that when you get into those meetings or you're doing the thing that we're doing business. And on the flip side of that, because even though we live far from each other, we spend a lot of time together. We have to like be sure that, say, when we're traveling with family, we might talk a little business, but we also have to know, like, okay, let's turn the work switch off and let's just enjoy ourselves. And I've definitely had moments in the fall, I was struggling a little bit where I was like, I don't need a business partner right now. Like I really need a friend. I just need to let some of the stuff that we're dealing with in business go, because I need and we haven't done that in a while. Because we're both very excited about the business, right? And we always want to be talking about it. We like to achieve, we like to this and that. But then, you know, if you let that go and get too big, you can lose sight of the fact that, oh wait, we have to have time to just get on the phone and check in and how's everything going.
We learned that very early on, my husband and I, because you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're in that infant toddler stage of that, whereas I would say he and I are in the life after kids stage, right?
Right.
Well, the length of time that we've been doing it. Yeah, but we always had a motto, like, we don't do work in the kitchen. So what that meant was, you know, everybody says you don't do work in the bedroom. Well, yeah, no, of course we didn't. But what we were doing is we were walking in the door from our practice and we were spilling it into our kitchen or our living room, or we were bringing it into our house. And you have to have hard and fast rules. And so, you know, this is something that's like, this is one of the reasons we talk through some of this, because this stuff gets clarified for us as we talk through it, is, you know, on vacations or when we take trips, we really do need to set aside and make that precious, sacred friend time. Right. And I think we do a good effort of that, but being intentional and knowing that that's a ground rule helps you to stick to it even more.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean we don't touch base, because the thing is, we don't see each other day to day to work. So we do need to take some time to like touch base, and we're excited about stuff. But the other thing was that we said very early on that no matter what, the friendship comes first. And if we ever get to a place where the friendship is suffering, like nothing is more important than the friendship.
Right.
So if we ever got to a place where the friendship was on the rocks or suffering or was going to fall apart because of the business, we would let the business go. And I think we both would still hold to that today.
I absolutely. And that's any great partnership. You have to have an exit strategy. So nobody ever wants to think about, well, what if this fails? And you think it's sort of like not being positive or, you know, sort of glass half full. But the smart person would start a partnership knowing that, okay, and if you sign a contract, if you're in like a legal partnership in a business, there would be an exit strategy. If this happens, then this. If this happens, then this. And so if you're going to do something, especially if it involves money and there's a friendship, you have to outline that and have that. So hopefully this was helpful. The last thing that I want to say about this is just kind of going back to where we started on the quiz and knowing your strengths is the best partners are people that are very different from you. Okay. So we have this tendency to like and want to work with people who are just like us. Well, the truth is differences are advantages, especially when it comes to business, because the best partners in my experience, and I have not studied this, but someone has, look it up, I bet you I'm right, are the ones that sort of dichotomize, right? And we do that quite a lot. I have the things that I do, my strengths, and you have the things that you have your
100%.
strengths. And wherever we overlap is often the places of conflict.
Yeah,
Right? Because that's when we want to say, well, no, we should do it this way, or we should do it that way.
that's so true. That's very good insight. And one other thing that, am I cutting you off here? Because one other thing I would say is, and probably this falls in with what you just said, is you have to agree from the very start that you're always going to be honest with each other. Right? And I think we said that early on, like we just have to make sure that we're being honest. And if something's not going the way we want, and we've lost track of that, I think sometimes, and that's gotten us set a little back, because again, the friendship comes in and you don't want to like create a conflict. But to your point, and you said this to me in the fall, was like, you have to set that, like we have to be able to be direct without hard feelings.
Yes.
Right? That's harder to do. We should be able to do that as friends too. And sometimes that's a little harder and you have to navigate those waters, but in business, you really have to be able to do that.
Well, I do think it's a special type of relationship and not just every friend that you can do that, because that's a level of trust, right? Because you have more faith in the relationship and that person than the comment, because it's a loving confrontation often when you have to say something, but you have enough trust that that person is going to not give up on you, right? You have that level.
That it's going to be well received.
Right. So those are great conversations to have with your best friends, and also to realize that not every friend is going to be that.
No, you might not want to go down that path, but you and I have that relationship as friends. But I'm saying that's a harder thing to do with friendships. But in a business, you do have to really make a point of that.
Yeah,
you're not gonna,
because you won't get to where you need to do. But that's a beautiful segue for my last point, which is that you have to
look at that.
My great partners, don't we? The green light can be another green light. Is that if there's great communication, then that's a good sign. If there's already difficult communication, meaning if you have trouble telling this person, speaking your mind, telling that person, hey, I really like this, but I wish this could be teal because of that, or whatever. I mean, that's just one example. And maybe you say, well, I would always be able to say that. But what about taking the step later or further rather, and say, well, what if you had to tell somebody, I really didn't like that move, or, think about how your level of communication and that level of trust that you have with that person.
Yeah, that's very, very important. And you and I have always been good at communicating with each other. I
think that's you.
Well,
I think you've helped me with that. That didn't come out right. Like that just made me, it definitely, like, I would say that you were that friend who helped pull that out of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never felt that way about you. That's interesting that you have that.
Maybe it's because I had that level of trust.
Maybe it's just because we trust each other enough to do it. I tend to be kind of transparent too, and just.
Yeah. You make it easy to talk to.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling the love. What else you got? Are we good?
I think that's a wrap. I think we need to leave it at that. I think that if, this is new for you and you're never thought about being open to partnerships, I think we're not at this phase, at least I'm not. Tell me if I'm alone, but I don't want to just get a goal for goal's sake. I want to work together with really cool people that I like and make cool stuff.
Like, it definitely makes it more fulfilling. Right. And one more thing, just a little side note that maybe will just like get you brain turning a little bit. If you're listening to this and you already have a project going or a business going or whatever it is, you could grow that or take it to the next level by maybe not having a business partner, but another business or somebody else that's working on their own thing that you collaborate with. That you're all, and we just had a call about this because we have, and I think that's a good thing to touch on. Another thing, if you're working towards something with a business, to have accountability partners that are in your same space that you can bounce ideas off of. But we were on this call and now we're talking about doing some collabs with each other across our businesses. It doesn't mean that we're going to own the same business, but we can all benefit and partner. And also, by the way, bring more value to our communities and our people, or you, in your case, could be clients or customers or whatever. So keep that in mind as well. Apologize for the dogs barking in the background. But anyway, ladies, I hope you enjoyed this conversation and got a lot from it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube if you'd like to listen to this episode in its full. And don't forget to check out the website, www.lifeafterkids.com, where you can find all the free things that we've got for you.
Yes. So thanks for listening, and here's to making more better days ahead.
Love it.